Right. All right, welcome in everyone. It's so amazing to see in the chat so many of you joining live. Give me a thumbs up if you can hear me, see my screen. Yeah, all right. Okay, we're gonna go ahead and get started. If you haven't already, go ahead and just drop into the chat. I'm like keeping up with the chat as it's going. Drop into the chat where you're joining from and just how you're feeling today. I always love to get a little temperature check and see how we're doing on this Sunday morning. And I know we have some people here. I see Saipan, Oahu. I know that there's someone in here from California too. So welcome in, welcome in. So we're going to go ahead and begin and get started. I'll keep an eye on the chat to let some additional people through, but wanted just to welcome you all. I know many of you have been in my space before, whether it's through yoga or events or retreats or coaching. And then I know there's a lot of new faces on here as well. So if this is your first Ina wellness experience, first time, brand new, go ahead and just drop into the chat. First time, first time. I know a couple of you have also done Rise and Align with me before. So if we have any Rise and Align ladies in the house here, you can go ahead and just drop in Rise or Inner Circle, just to kind of see who we have here. Yeah, so definitely a few first timers. So welcome in. I am always a big believer that we can create a lot of connection online. I started my business in the middle of basically at the start of the pandemic. So moving from in-person live experiences and quickly shifting to virtual definitely made me see that there's so much that we can do in a virtual space to feel connected with each other and just to build that sense of community. Yeah, so we have some Rise and Align ladies in here, a lot of first timers. So go ahead and get comfortable in the chat. We're going to be using it quite a bit through our session today as a way to stay connected and to really go through the workshop. So all of you signed up for this session. Specifically, I'm assuming because of that connection to wanting to feel aligned, wanting to feel balanced, feeling a bit stuck at this point in your life, in the middle of a transition, in a season of change. So if any of those things resonate with you, you're in the right place for sure. I've blocked off about 90 minutes for this session. We might go a little bit less than that. I'll be sure to not go over that. But really just to give ourselves some time and some space this morning or this afternoon, wherever it is you're joining from, to really zoom out of our lives. Even if it's just for, a morning, we can get so much clarity in a short amount of time when we focus. So these are the three things that we're going to be going through today in our workshop. I tried to keep it as simple as possible so that we can really hopefully walk away with some key takeaways and some action. So the way that you can remember this is CTA, which typically stands for call to action. Today it's going to stand for clarity, target, and action. So I'm going to be sharing with you what I'm calling the Ina alignment audit, and really easy way for you to look at your life, see what's out of alignment, see what needs to shift, see maybe the blind spots that you haven't seen before, and bring those to the surface. So we're going to start off with that as our main exercise today. And then once you have an idea of what needs to shift, what needs to change, what have I been tucking in the corner, we can take a look at our target, right? What do we do first and why now? For those of you who have been through coaching with me, you know that, one of the biggest benefits of coaching is being able to take this big idea, this big goal, this big thing that we want to do, and actually condense it into, what do I do today? What do I do tomorrow? What do I do this week? How do I take this big lofty goal and actually move it into action? Because that's typically where people get stuck, is this feeling of like, I have this goal and I'm not sure how to get there. So we're going to be looking at how do we zoom in on that target. And then finally, my hope is that everyone walks away with some really aligned action steps. The goal is not just to think about what's out of alignment or to think about what we want to do next, but to actually get some action from this. I decided to add on a 5-day challenge after this workshop. So that's going to kick off tomorrow. So if you know that you work best with accountability, if you know that you want a little extra push after this workshop to actually do the things that you say you want to do, that's going to be an amazing space to be. And I'll definitely drop that link in. And I think we have a good group going already. The chat just opened this morning. So that's what we're going to be focusing on today. CTA. We'll come back to that. When I was in my previous job, previous career, I did a lot of work around creating trainings, creating programs, creating online offers. And one of the things that I had learned was that in order to make something stick online or in a virtual space, two things typically have to happen. First, it's actually writing things down, right? Taking notes, even if you're taking a photo of the screen or, you're listening, actually taking notes helps you remember things, right? The other way to build this connection online and to just keep your focus here is to react, right? So all of you at the bottom of your screen might see this little, react button. This is where you can add a heart, you can add a party, you can add a rocket, you can add a balloon. Like, this is where if something is resonating with you and you want to, +1 to that, you can go ahead and react. Also, another thing that you can do is use the chat, right? React to other people's responses. Make a friend in the chat, right? Like, this is a place for us to keep the focus, and that comes with reacting and also using the chat as well. All right. I love it. I see some emojis coming through. So you're all here and I see it. I see it. We have over 31 people here live, which is amazing. I know we have a bunch of people who are going to be catching the replay as well. So this goes the same, for those on the replay, maybe not necessarily the reaction, but the taking notes. All right. One of the things I like to say, actually, at a lot of the workshops I've done and virtual, sessions I've done, is when you sign up for something, anything, it could be a class, a workshop, something that you're interested in, it can be easy to go into it thinking, okay, I'm gonna change everything after this workshop, right? And I've had a lot of people actually come up to me since signing up for the workshop and be like, I really need this, right? Like, I'm really at a time where I need this workshop. But I want you to think about, if you get nothing else from this next hour together, 90 minutes together, it's really just looking for the golden nugget, right? It's looking for that one mindset shift, that one idea, right? That one thing that you're like, yes, that is it, right? So kind of taking the pressure off of like, don't expect to leave this and completely change your life, right? I'm going to be giving as much as I can and really, opening it up for people to share and ask questions and all of that. But I really want you to think about, how can I just take that golden nugget? How can I find that little piece that I'm going to take from this puzzle today? All right, so I know many of you familiar faces, but a lot of new people in here too. I know a lot of people said first timer, first timer, first timer. So if this is your first time into this space, wanted to just take a moment to share a little bit about my journey and my story and why I am obsessed with alignment, right? And that word obsessed is true because it seeps into everything that I do. So, the main ways that people have worked with me in different capacities have been through retreats, through coaching, and through some of you I know have probably listened to the podcast as well. But the four main areas that I like to focus on when I think about alignment is, how do we align our habits, right? Our daily rituals, our practices, the things that we do every single day. How do we look at our home space? Many of you can probably agree that our home space is sometimes a reflection of other things going on in our lives, whether it's cluttered, whether there's a thing we don't want to look at, right? Whether there's, whatever it might be, our home is such a huge sanctuary for us. Our relationships, I would say the biggest mirror back to ourselves are the things that we need to take a look at for ourselves, our values, our boundaries, all comes back to relationships and then mindset. And today we're going to do a lot of that mindset work because I will say that that is like the gift that keeps on giving. If you can get curious about how do I think, stories I'm telling myself, what are the patterns that are, the voice that's running on autopilot in the background, this is where people shift and change their lives. So as I mentioned, all things lead back to alignment for me, and it really is super exciting to get to share this topic with you today. Whether you're coming in for the first time, whether you've been through many of my coaching programs, it's always an amazing opportunity to just zoom out of your life and reflect, and again look for that golden nugget that you have for this workshop. I will be sharing this at the end, but I'm just going to give you a little preview. If you're already like, yes, I know I want more, like, where do I sign up? I will share this with you. We open enrollment for Rise and Align today, actually. And so for those of you who are interested, I am going to be sharing more information about that. These are just a couple little snippets of people who have gone through the program. A big theme that you'll see with a lot of people I've worked with is awareness, mindset, internal shifts, like didn't expect to, change the way that I approach things. I do this program over and over again in a minute. So I wanted to share this just to show you that some of the biggest shifts that we can make, yes, are in the practical, right? It's like the habits, the food, the movement, the self-care, but some of the biggest shifts that people see and feel are those internal shifts, right? I'm moving differently. I'm making decisions differently. My energy is more aligned. So for those of you who know you want to go deeper into this, I am offering a bonus for exclusively for this group. So a discount off as well as a one-on-one coaching call with me by 8/22. So I'll share this all at the end, but for those of you who can't make it to the end, wanted to plant the seed with you here. All right, go ahead and drop into the chat a 1 if you are ready. You're ready. If you're like, I have my notebook, I've got my coffee, I have my phone on focus mode. I am like ready and here. And life is life, especially on a Sunday morning. So, if you need to, excuse yourself for anything, you got kids around, you have to use the bathroom, like just take care of yourself during this time. We'll have a little stretch break in between just to move things around. But as much as possible, this is your time, right? So whatever you need to do to be fully here. I find that our phone is the biggest distraction. So even just flipping it over, right? Flipping it over, putting it on focus mode. All right, so lots of ones coming through. Ones in the chat if you are ready. All right. So taking the first step. This is figuring out, why are you here? I shared with you why I'm here, right? But why this is the work that I do, why I'm obsessed with alignment. And I'll share a little bit more about my own, journey and story as we move through the workshop. But I want you to take a moment to really think, like, what drew you to sign up here, to sign up for this workshop? Was it, I looked at the word stuck and I was like, yep, that's me. Is it, oh, I love, wellness spaces, I just wanted to join? Was it because it's free? Was it because, your friend told you about it? Just think about what it is that actually drew you here. So I'm going to have us start with filling in a few blanks, and I would love for you to do this in the chat. So my life right now feels. Don't overthink it. Just put the first word that comes to mind in the chat. Does it feel full? Does it feel crazy? Does it feel on fire? Does it feel abundant? Does it feel energizing? Go ahead and just drop into the chat that one word. My life right now feels. All right, my life right now feels. I'm going to try to keep up with the chat. They're all coming through at once. So keep your words coming through. My life right now feels. Okay, open, uncertain, overwhelming, transitional, purposeful, slow, blessed, crazy, stagnant, full, badass. Yes, love that. Stagnant, spacious, work in progress, chaotic, blessed and abundant, pause, exciting. Yeah. So even just noticing of the people that are in this room, there's a lot of similarities. There's a range, right? A full range, overwhelming and abundant. And what I love about, getting to do this work is people don't necessarily always have to come to looking at alignment from a place of not being aligned, right? There are a lot of things that are probably booming in your life that are so exciting that you're over, abundant and grateful for. However, there's typically a balance, right, of things that are going really well, and then maybe some areas that keep coming up as patterns or whatever it might be. Full, yeah. So I love all of these words that are coming through. Such a range. Fast pace. Okay, so we are in August. Yes, end of August. So we've got a couple months left for the year. And if you think about, many of you, I believe, were probably on the workshop that I did at the very beginning of the year, creating our word of the year, our intentions. That feels like it was just yesterday, to be honest. But now we're already on the second half, right? We're on the second half of the year. So I'd love to end the year feeling. And just take a moment here. It doesn't have to be long, but like close your eyes and think about December 31st. December 31st, 2025. How do you want to end the year feeling? Feeling, tap into that feeling. So go ahead and drop that word into the chat. How are we ending 2025? I'd love to end the year feeling awakened, proud, accomplished, lots of accomplished, renewed, strong. All right, we're accomplishing a lot for sure. Purposeful, purpose-free, purposeful. Love it, love it. Successful, confident. Yeah, and just notice when you completely align with the goals I set out in the beginning, accomplished, yes, liberated. All right, you're all in the right place because we are not just talking about things in here, but we are putting an action plan together. We're actually gonna get some action on top of the world. Yes, amazing. And just take a moment to notice, like when you thought of that word, right? This is our already starting to activate our intuitive voice, right? That's why I say don't overthink it. First thing that comes to mind, right? How are we filling in that blank? Notice if there was an image that went along with that for you. If you were like, I saw myself December 31st, this is what I saw, right? This is what I see. It doesn't have to be a full blown out, like very specific image. Some of you may be super visual and you're like, I saw it. But even just tapping into that feeling, right? Like what were you doing? What was the first image that came through as you came up with this word? Calm. Yeah, amazing. All right. So as I mentioned, the four main sort of pathways that I see to alignment are how do we look at the habits, the home, the relationships, and the mindset. Grateful and peaceful. Finishing off my becoming board. Yes. And for those of you who are on the New Year's workshop, we did a becoming board rather than a vision board. And so the area of my life needing the biggest shift. Right? Maybe all of these are thriving for you, right? As I said, like it doesn't always have to be aligning from a necessarily a chaotic space, but typically there's an area that we want to focus on a little bit more. So you can put in A, B, C, or D. This is the area that is needing the biggest shift. Habits, home, relationships, or mindset. So go ahead and just think of what's happening in each of these categories. You can also put all in case you're like, yeah, everything. Everything is in need of the reset. But go ahead and drop in A, B, C, D, or all. Okay, we got a little bit of everything. Mix of everything. Yeah, mix of everything. All. Yeah, okay. Amazing. You're in the right place then. Again, it's confirming you signed up for the workshop. You're here live. Now it's time to actually go a little bit deeper. A and B, C and D. All right. Amazing. So just letting a few more people off the wait list or off of the waiting room. All right, so I hope just that quick exercise of thinking about how do you want your year, where is your life right now? How do you want it to look? Which area needs the most attention? Even just doing those three questions is starting to bring things to the surface. And my hope today in this workshop is to bring things to the surface, right? Is to create some space for you to reflect, for you to connect with each other, for you to just take a moment to pause and to notice what needs to shift in your life. And I use that word shift very intentionally because and I'll get into that towards the end of the workshop is, what do we do with this information, right? What do we do with this information that we're reflecting on, and how do we shift it into action? So today I'm going to be sharing four main ways to look at alignment in your life. And a lot of it is going to be tapping into our intuition. It's going to be tapping into our energy, which is actually one of them. So the four of them are looking at ease in our life, what feels easy and effortless versus what feels, where is there resistance? It's looking at the energy in our life, what is giving us energy, draining our energy. It's looking at our emotions. I believe our emotions, our reactions are some of the biggest keys and clues into where we need to look. And then how do we not just talk about it? How do we actually embody it? Right? And I've actually never broken this down in this way. I do this type of work with my clients all the time, but specifically for this workshop, I was like, how would I explain alignment and have people really leave with some clarity? And so this came up, and obviously all of them start with ease. So this is easy to remember, right? Easy, energy, emotions, and embodiment. And so just noticing, you don't have to put it in the chat, but just noticing for yourself which one you're drawn to right away without even knowing what we're going to go through in each stage. Just notice ease, energy, emotions, embodiment. Notice which one you feel most connected to, just right off the bat. So we're going to be going through some exercises. I'm going to invite us to pause at a few points, give you some time to think. This is not just things that just come out right away. Sometimes we do need to actually think in our life what kind of have that time for reflection. So I will give you that time as we move through it. But we're going to start with ease. And so what I love about looking at ease first is when we think about our lives and what's happening, so often, the things that are coming up that stay on our mind the longest are typically related to the opposite of ease, right? We're typically like noticing where is there resistance, whether it's moments, tasks, relationships, like, where are we feeling that resistance? But I always like to start with what is feeling effortless, right? What in your life is feeling effortless, enjoyable, and natural? So when we talk about ease for this exercise, for the purpose of this workshop, we're looking at our life holistically, right? So we're not just looking at what's easeful in your career, what's easeful in your relationships, what's easeful in your habits, right? We're looking at the whole picture. And so I want you to take a moment. You can write this down, right? As I mentioned, taking notes is the easiest way to make things stick. Write down ease and write down the word flow. I want you to take a few moments here just to think about what in your life feels effortless, enjoyable, and natural. Effortless, enjoyable, and natural. And as I mentioned, I'll be giving us some time throughout this to just think about it, but I want you to take a few moments just to jot down maybe 2 or 3 things in your life that feel effortless. And if you'd like, I'd love to invite you to drop one of those words into the chat. What in your life feels effortless? We've got animals, meditation, beautiful. What in your life feels effortless? Dancing, journaling, acting, my fitness journey. Yeah. All right. Keep these coming through. My fitness journey, self-care, gardening, and even just when I was looking, when I was creating this presentation, I was even looking at, okay, what word or what image to me feel like encompasses that word effortless. And I saw this one of these women dancing, right? Like hair flowing and just like, yes, it's that freedom, right? It's that feeling of being free, daydreaming, listening to music, being outside, right? So these are all really clues to what is in alignment, like what is working already. And it's important to really lean into these things, like when it's working, what's working, right? When it's not working, why is it not working? So we want to start with what is already working, what's effortless, what's natural, what's enjoyable. All right, so going into the other side, we're looking at force. One of the keys, and we'll get into this as we move into the other segments, is this feeling of resistance, right? I think we probably all felt at some point, whether it's in a job, a project, a relationship that we have, even just in a habit that we're doing, that there's resistance, right? Of like, I feel like I don't want to be doing that, right? Or I don't want to be talking to this person, or I don't want to be, spending my time here anymore, right? This feeling of resistance. And when you think about this in the body, right, this can often feel like tightening. So just as for flow, we feel this sense of like freedom, openness, like there's just that, in our body, even just moving your body right now, like moving your body, letting, shaking out your arms, shaking out your head, like there's that feeling of flow. When you feel resistance, notice just what happens in the body, right? You're like probably automatically already tightening up a little bit in different ways. So noticing that feeling of where you feel resistance in your life, and take a moment to note down maybe 2 or 3 areas of your life that you feel resistance. Go ahead and take a moment to think about that. And if you have a few things noted down, you can drop one into the chat. You can drop one of the items on your list in. Okay, I see a couple of these coming through, wide range, right? So we've got past relationships, setting boundaries, in-laws, boundaries, organizing, decluttering the home, current job, taking uncomfortable action, balancing work and life, expressing my thoughts, right? So for anything that you wrote down, and we're going to circle back to these later as well, but just notice, like asking yourself why, right? Why? What about that relationship? What about that job? What about your home? What about being seen, expressing your thoughts? All right, distance, overindulgence. Okay, so this is our first area for alignment, right? And this is an easy question, right? What feels easy, right? What feels easy, and where is there resistance? So that is our first indicator for what's in alignment and potentially what's not. The second one, energy. If you saw, I don't know if you have seen, I reposted it the other day, but there's a little, viral clip of Taylor Swift in a recent interview where she talks about your energy being your a luxury item, right? Not everyone can afford it. Not everyone can have access to it. And what I love about that is it's true, right? Not everyone deserves our energy, right? And there are areas where our energy um, there are areas where our energy is fueled, and there are areas where our energy fades. And this is different from the flow and the force, right? The flow and that ease is like what feels easy, where is there resistance? This is you can literally think of a battery here, right? Of like increasing the charge of the battery and what is draining the charge of the battery. So on your page, write energy, fuel, and fade. And I want you to think about what energizes you, that spark, that excitement, that thing that makes you feel alive. I think about like this is also like the thing you can't shut up about, right? It's like the thing that you're just fueled by, that you can do for hours, and maybe it's like type of work that you do for hours and you just get lost in it. I work with a lot of creatives, people that are artists, musicians, building businesses, entrepreneurs, and like this is such a huge question, right? Like what is filling the battery? What is filling the battery? So just take a moment to write this down. I'd love to if you could all write down more than three, right? What are the things that are really fueling you and exciting you? So take a few moments here and keep the chats coming. All right, and as you think of these, write down these options, what fuels you, go ahead and drop one into the chat. Let's see, what is fueling people? That sparks excitement, makes them feel alive. It's like their heart is on fire with these things. All right, working out, children, grandchildren, cooking, physical activity, self-care, prayer, fitness journey. Ah, they're coming through fast. Making my own juice, creating recipes, new ideas for change, exploring conscious perspectives, the ocean, loving, dancing, singing, watching people, yes, witnessing birth, creating, especially writing, working on my art, matcha, we love that, big opportunities, travel, your puppy, yeah, and just stick in this energy for a minute. Right before we go into the drain, but think about what are those things that just spark. The spark is there. Spark going to the gym, biking, traveling to Japan, nature, animals. Yeah, nature, nurtured connections. All right. And as I mentioned, like notice the energy. Notice what happens to your body when you write these things, right? When you're writing this down, do you already feel like, oh, I'm so excited about this. I can't shut up about this. Like this is the thing that really like fuels me. And again, this is all activating that intuitive guidance, right? That intuitive, our own internal compass, right? Of like, where do we lean more into and where do we maybe evolve or shift or release? All right, so now we have the battery is full, right? We spent all day doing these things that we love, and doing the things that really, really light us up, the big spark. And now we have to think about what are the things that slowly go drain, 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 drain. And it's important to know what these things are because we can then, that's where boundaries come in, right? That's where decisions come in. That's where this work comes in. It's not always going to be like, oh, let's just all do the thing that we love to do, right? The work is actually in integration and not isolation, right? If we just isolate and just work on ourselves, that'll be a fun thing to do, right? We'll be very happy in that way, but we actually integrate this work when we get to practice it, right? When we get to have the hard conversations, when we get to set the boundaries. So it's not in the isolation, it's actually in the integration of this. So I want you to really think about what drains you, what leaves you tired, what makes you feel like you're just going through the motions, like not sparked, not lit up. Just take a moment to write down maybe at least three things. And I want you to also think about not everything has to be just because you put someone's name on there doesn't mean that it's a bad, person or bad relationship. It can really just be like this trait in a person is draining, right? If someone's the one taking up all the space in the conversation, right? And not asking you any questions. That can be really draining, right? The same thing as, other type of social interactions. So write down a few draining things, and then go ahead and drop one in the chat. Okay, I'm going to read some of these because they're coming through, and in case you need any additional ideas, right? We have overworking, bad food, people pleasing, haters, people with bad intentions, the job, negative self-talk, producing work that doesn't have a positive impact or outcome, toxic work environment, all things motherhood, co-parenting, healing, tantrums, demands, toxic friendships, people pleasing, doom scrolling, social media, manipulation, not feeling seen, being at home too long, endless to-do lists. I mean, as this resonating with people work, motherhood, and envious competitive relationships, right? So it's one of the reasons why I added in relationships into my program was because it was coming up across the board for everyone. And it still is a huge, huge part of the program because, again, it's the integration, right? Like being able to have this practice, have relationships be our biggest mirrors, but also get the chance to practice, right? To practice this work, to practice values, boundaries, decision making, how I'm going to use my time, what I'm going to say yes to, what I'm going to say no to. And so just having this awareness is huge. So take a moment. I know we wrote down, you probably have a couple things jotted down for each, but I want you to just take a look, and you can even draw this out on your page to kind of summarize the things that are flowing, the things that you're feeling forced or resistance, the things that are fueling you, right? Energy, battery is filling, and the things that are fading. And so now that you wrote down, all of your notes before, go ahead and create this to see if you can summarize for yourself, right? Summarize for yourself what would be in each category. Maybe there's one thing in particular that's like actually the thing that's flowing right now, that's easy is this, that's resistance is this, that's energizing me is this, and what's draining is this. So just take a few moments here to summarize this for yourself, right? There's a piece of the puzzle that is brain dumping, and there's a piece of the puzzle that's summarizing. So I'll give a few minutes for this. When you are finished, drop a 1 in the chat, 1 in the chat when you're done. I see some ones coming through. If you have a one already and you're done with this exercise, just take a moment to look at it. Look at it. What do you notice? Let any additional, notes or messages come through for you. The process of reflection is not just one and done. It is very much like thinking about it, writing it down, saying it out loud, thinking, there's a range, just like how you would learn something, right? There's multiple ways of learning something. With reflection and getting clarity, we really want to give ourselves this space, right? So force, flow, fuel, and fade. All right. So yeah, all the ones coming through. So before we move into the next two E's, I just want to take a moment to, as I mentioned, like shake up the body a little bit, have a moment to breathe. So wherever you are, go ahead and just like shake your hands out, shake your arms out. And then go ahead and bring the arms up and overhead. Take a nice big stretch. You can clasp your hands, push them up. If you want, you can tip side to side, just stretch out that side body a little bit. Maybe round the spine, push the palms towards me, and just do that a few times, tipping right to left, rounding the spine. And take a big backstroke with the arms behind you, maybe circle out the wrists, place your hands back down, and then just go ahead and drop the chin to the chest. Just again, moving a little bit to the body, moving the body a little bit. Take a few little neck rolls or neck tilt side to side. If it feels okay for the neck, you can take it all the way around. Maybe you feel some cracks, some creaks. And then just take a moment to place both hands on the heart and just close down the eyes just for a moment. Go ahead and take a big, nice deep breath in through the nose. Big breath in, belly and chest. I'm going to take a big sigh out. If you want to make some noise with it, you're all on mute. No one can hear you. Sigh it out, release the jaw. And do that twice more. Take a nice big breath. And a big audible sigh out. One more big breath in. And then a big sigh out. And when you're ready, you can open the eyes and just do anything you need to do to get comfortable, right? Settle in. We're going into the second part of this alignment audit, which is taking it a little bit of a layer deeper. My guess is that many of you have thought about these first two before, right? You've thought about ease, you've thought about energy. These two things come up a lot. You can see everywhere on Instagram, energy givers, energy drainers, sunlight, all these things, right? So my guess is you've thought of these before. And so now we get to look at, okay, what are maybe the things that we don't look at on a regular basis? And that are, as I mentioned, the biggest clues into what's in and out of alignment. So the next one is emotions. When I picked that emotions, if you remember on the audit, on that slide that had all four of them, I had different, scenes of nature. And for emotions, I thought of like the dark water, right? The depth. This is where we're really tuning into like what is the emotional current that we live in. And so emotions are really some of our biggest signals. I want you to think about when's the last time you had a big reaction to something, right? Some place that you felt, maybe you snapped and you yelled at someone, right? Or you had a big emotion crying, or, there was sadness, whatever it might be, right? I'm a full spectrum of emotions, right? It doesn't always have to be sadness or anger or frustration. Like it can be the full spectrum, but I want you to think about the last time you really had a strong reaction to something. And just notice what about that, why it showed up, right? What was that signal? What was that reaction telling you? And if you would like, if you feel open to it, go ahead and drop maybe what that reaction was into the chat. Like I cried, I yelled at someone, I snapped, I had whatever it is. You had road rage, you had a strong reaction to something. You shut down. Go ahead and drop, if you'd like, into the chat just what's the first reaction that comes to mind? Strong emotional reaction. Yeah, overwhelming frustration that left me tearful. Yes, right? When it's just like I'm feeling it, I'm feeling multiple emotions, right? I'm overwhelmed, I'm frustrated, I'm sad. Yeah. If anyone has anything else I want to tap into or pop into there, shut down, harder to find compassion, understanding, cried, yelled, suppressed my feelings, impatient, frustration, right? I want you to think about the next time you have an emotional reaction, this is a message, right? Our reactions are messages to us, like, oh, something we need to look at, something that is telling us something, right? It's our emotions screaming at us, just the way that our body screams at us. Our emotions can also scream at us too. Overwhelmed, cry, and then shut down, touched out. Yes, okay. So as we think about what's in and out of alignment, it's not it is looking at what's effortless, right? What's energizing, but it's also looking at these emotions, right? Like when something is really triggering me and has this reaction. The other thing that you can look at when it comes to emotions is typically these big reactions or emotions have layers to them, right? They have things that have come before them. So oftentimes it's not just solely that instance or solely that situation. You're not overwhelmed just because of that email, response that someone sent or whatever it might be, right? It's that with a bunch of stuff underneath the surface, right? It's like the old patterns, the old wounds, the unmet needs, things that are coming up. And when I think about a lot of the work that I've done, it all comes back to, how people experience these core needs before, either being met or unmet, and then how does that show up in our adult life, right? So an example of this would be, if as a kid or growing up, you struggled a lot with a feeling of belonging, right? Maybe you were bullied, maybe that you had an instance of something, you lived in a place where you felt different, whatever it might be. If you had those feelings of like, I don't belong, I don't belong, I don't belong, or I'm not worthy, I'm not worthy, I'm not worthy, or I don't matter, my voice doesn't matter. If you had any of these stories in your, childhood and your past, and something happens as an adult, right, where it may be something as simple as like, I didn't get invited to this thing, right? Or I didn't get chosen for this thing, right? Whatever it might be, sometimes we have these big emotional reactions and we're like, I didn't get invited to the thing, right? But it's like, it has nothing to do with that. It does have something to do with it, but it's this, typically built on top of it, other things that have happened. So if this is resonating with you at all, if you're like, I've experienced something like that, drop a 1 in the chat. If you're like, yeah, I know. I have, there's things that reactions I have that it's not just that reaction. It's something that is built up over time. And so these are areas, what I call, shadows. If you've done shadow work before, you know that shadow work is really looking at kind of the deeper unmet needs that we have. It's looking at the things that we hide in the corner, right? Of course, you don't want to say, oh, like that someone didn't invite me to something. But it's not about that, right? It's about this feeling of belonging, a connection, worthiness, whatever it might be. So the more that we can understand our own shadows, we're able to make sense of it, right? And I say this to my clients all the time. It's not like the goal is to not feel those emotions and not have those reactions, but it's to feel that, get curious, be able to know like, oh, I know why I'm feeling like this, right? Point back, trace it back, and then you're able to process it, right? You're able to be like, okay, I get why this is a trigger for me, right? And even being able to say like, I'm triggered. That's a huge piece of the puzzle, right? More we can bring it out of the subconscious and into the conscious, then we can actually work with it. So emotions are a huge, huge key to alignment. And then finally, I want you to just think about that before we go into embodiment. Actually, just take a moment to notice for you what, as I was speaking, what are some of those emotions that you think that trigger you, or those situations that trigger you, right? Is it like, I know my work is around worthiness, I know my work is around trust, I know my work is around belonging, whatever it is, just take a few moments to jot those down. And if this is completely new to you and you're like, I have never even looked at this before and I've never even thought of it, then this is a great place to be, right? To just start to bring it to the surface. All right. And I love people are putting into the chat. This is vulnerable work, right? We don't get to talk about this in our normal circles often, right? But like, this is my work, right? Being heard, being respected, worthiness, communication, not being seen or heard. Go ahead and drop into the chat. If you would like, completely optional, what is your work that you're working on? Self-trust, betrayal, yep. Keeping my own promises. Enoughness, yes. Right. worthiness, belonging, support. Yeah, and it's interesting how I'm sure that we all on this call different, right? We're all different. We all come from different backgrounds, live different places, have a different set of circumstances, but there's so much overlap in the work that we're doing, right? It's like being seen, being heard, like feeling that sense of belonging. Like there's so much that overlaps there. Coming back to our core needs. Yeah, so drop a heart if you resonate with what people are writing, right? Okay, so this final E, I went back and forth whether this one, on what this one would be actually. I was like, is it evolution? Is it embodiment? But I really landed on embodiment for a reason because there is so much that we can think about. We can write things down. We can overanalyze. We can be like, oh, like we can think, okay, we don't know, we don't know, we don't know. But deep down, we know. We deep down, we know the answer already. We know, like, if we give our intuition the space, the answer is there. It's already within. It's not a coach telling you this. It's not, your Instagram algorithm telling you this. It is yourself. And so embodiment, when I think of this, I really divide it into two areas. And this is looking at our values. And then I've mentioned this a little bit throughout, but like this feeling in our body, right? How do we actually feel in the choices that we make? So first off, just with authenticity. Authenticity is definitely one of my, core values. And I know this comes up for a lot of people when they are thinking of their values as well. It's one of the reasons why every single program I've ever run, whether it's one-on-one, group, anything, I've always had people do work around values because I do believe that our values are part of that compass, right? Of like being able to understand ourselves better. And so just noticing, like, are the choices I'm making, are the actions, are the spaces I'm in aligned with my values? Or is the person I'm with romantically or friendship, are they aligned with my values? It's being able to basically walk the walk, right? Walk the walk, talk the talk. It's like are the things that I say are important to me actually showing up and embodied in my life? So that's a huge thing. I love this image of a person looking at the mirror because a lot of times our values are pointing right back to us. And then that feeling of feeling it in our body. I want you to think about a time that you had to make a really big decision. A big decision. This could be, am I going to stay? Am I going to go? Am I going to move? Am I going to, not move? Am I going to, whatever that decision is, right? I want you to think about the last time you made a really big decision. And I want you to think about how that actually felt in your body. How did that decision feel in your body? And you don't necessarily have to put it in the chat, but I just want you to think about it. Because people will often say, like, okay, I just feel it in my gut, right? Like you feel the stress, you feel the overwhelm, you feel like the lack of clarity. It often manifests in our body, but we can also tune into that feeling of like, what the decision is either way, right? Whether it's, do I move, do I stay, right? Thinking about that decision, the decision to move, how does that feel in your body? The decision to stay, how does that feel in your body, right? And really tuning into our body as like a message, right? These are all like intuitive messages that are coming through to us. But oftentimes people think like I have to make the decision from up here, right? But we're making the decision sometimes from the heart, yes, head and heart, right? People often say that, right? Like my head wants this and my heart wants this. But what is the decision that our body is making, right? Our whole body coming online, what would that be? So I want you to think about that. Big decisions that you've had to make, how does it feel in the body, right? Okay, so go ahead and just wherever you are, take a big breath in through the nose and then a big sigh out of the mouth. So I want you to draw a big circle on your paper. Big circle, biggest one that you have. And we are going to now summarize what came up for you in this audit, right? We looked at ease, we looked at energy, we looked at emotions, we looked at embodiment. And I'm sure a lot of things came up across different areas of your life. Maybe you're like thinking of relationships, maybe you're thinking of career, maybe you're thinking of your home. Like the purpose of this was just to bring it all up, right? Like bubble up to the surface. But now we get to get some clarity on like what's in and what's out. And I'm like, how do I keep this as simple as possible? It's literally what's in the circle and what's outside of the circle, what's in there and what's out of there. So I'm going to give a few minutes and I want you to just put down what in your life feels in alignment, put in the circle, what feels out of alignment, put out of the circle. Super simple. You can drop a 2 in the chat whenever you're finished. We'll give a little bit more time for this. 2 in the chat when you're finished. I see some twos coming through, twos coming through. And again, if you are done, just take a look at what's on there. What do you notice about it? What do you feel? How do you feel about it? And I'm going to invite you to write 1 of 2 words in the chat. I want you to write down the word surprised if you feel like there's anything that surprises you that came up today. I want you to write the word confirmation if it's a confirmation of something you know already, that you're like, I know that this is, I've known this and I know this. Confirmation, put confirmation. But if there's something that like actually something was surprising that came out, put surprise. Yeah, confirmation, confirmation, confirmation. Yeah, right. It's something that you're like, okay, I am aware. I'm aware. Okay, we got a surprise in there, confirmation. All right, keep these coming through. Keep these coming through. So oftentimes, and I've done this exercise in, in different capacities with people, but oftentimes there's a couple of themes that come up in terms of what's out of the circle, right? It can be a romantic relationship that is shadow work revealed a surprise. Yeah. Romantic relationship can be out of the circle, a job or a role, right? You've outgrown something. It doesn't feel aligned to your values. Sometimes a decision that you made before no longer feels aligned, no longer feels like the right decision. Something that you've committed your time to. So, for example, maybe you committed to being part of something for a certain amount of time, and that actually like no longer feels like um, aligned time commitment. I know a lot of people like you're on Qualbar, like in a number of different organizations, right? You're like on boards and you're serving, volunteering for different things, right? There's all these organizations and nonprofits and things. And so just thinking about like, how are you using your time and sometimes something feels aligned and then maybe it shifts to out of the circle. For those who are, business owners or, managers or whatever it might be, that maybe a collaboration or a partnership can feel aligned and then it can shift out of the circle. Maybe it's a project that you used to love that now feels like it's out. Location, right? Where you live, maybe where you live no longer feels aligned, or a friendship, right? Sometimes we go through seasons of different friendships, and maybe there's a person in your life that no longer feels aligned. What can be hard here, right, is when we look at things that are in and out of alignment or out of the circle that we don't necessarily have control over, which we're going to talk about in a little bit, right? Maybe there's a family member that's out of there. Maybe it's a job that you actually cannot leave because you're like contractually bound to it or bound to it, right? So I want you to think about that. Like, what out of the circle is in your control versus what out of the circle is not in your control? Or do you perceive is not out of your control? Because it very well could be, right? And we can just have the perception that it's not in our control. So looking at this exercise, this alignment audit, I want you to think about the one thing you noticed during this exercise. So one thing you noticed during this exercise. And this could be, I notice everything is about my career. I notice everything is about this. I notice it's hard for me to look at the shadow. I notice it's, yeah, just anything you noticed. There's no right or wrong answer here. But take a moment to write it down and pop it into the chat. One thing you noticed during this exercise. These are such powerful shares that are coming through. If you're not in the chat, definitely go in there and start reading some of these things that are coming through as a result of this exercise, right? More awareness of your emotions, keep choosing myself, have trusted, aligned relationships, areas for growth and better alignment. How many things we have hesitate to share but have in common? 100%, right? If one person kicks off a share and then all of a sudden it's like, oh, we're opening the vulnerability gates, right? And so just noticing. And I love how a lot of people are noticing too, like, oh yeah, I actually am quite aligned in a lot of things. Like, more than I thought I was, right? And this is like bringing it. My goal here is not to have everyone leave feeling like, oh, everything's out of alignment, right? But it's actually to show you, wow, there's a lot of things that you're fueled by that, like all of the positive things that are working, like the things that are working, the things that are not working, it's a key and it's a message. Good habits stay. I love this, love this. Okay, out of line with something. Yeah, what's in your control? Awareness. Oh, I'm aware, but also scared. Yeah. All right. All right, so moving into now that we've done this alignment audit, like what do we do next, right? Where do we go from here? So I'm bringing this back, CTA. Normally stands for call to action, but today it stands for clarity, target, and align next steps. So we've done the alignment audit, right? Looking at the four main E's, bubbling to the surface, summarizing what is in and out of our circle. Now we actually have to look at a target, right? Of like what first and why now. And this is where people get stuck. People get stuck when it's like it's a big thing that I need to change and like I don't know where to start and I don't have the energy to start and I don't know if I know even what to do to start, right? And so they get stuck in this feeling of like almost stagnancy. And I'm noticing that that word has been coming up a lot in a lot of conversations I've been having, people who have dropped into, the DMs, being interested in coaching or wanting to explore more. That word stagnancy has been coming up across the board. It's not even that feeling of stuck, right? Stagnant is just like you're just there, right? You're just like nothing is moving. And so the big thing to think about here is what to focus on first and why is that the first thing to focus on. So I'm going to ask a couple questions here and I want you to really think about, oh, I'm gonna move into that after. Um, we're gonna go to the question first, actually. But I want you to think about impact, right? There's a lot of times, and I'm sure you've experienced this before, where you have a to-do list and you have like a big project that you have to do, a couple other small things, and then like a really easy like admin task. And oftentimes we're going to start with the easy stuff, right? We're like, let me just send this email, let me just do this thing, let me do this thing that doesn't take a lot of brain power or a lot of like effort or energy, right? We typically don't go to the biggest thing on our to-do list first. We're going to get all the easy stuff done out of the way, right? So for this specific exercise, I want you to think about impact, right? What feels like the most impactful action to take based off of what's outside of your circle. And maybe your outside of the circle is a lot or like different areas of your life. I really want you to focus in and zoom in on one, right? What is the first thing that feels the most pressing, most impactful, like the thing that will have the ripple effect, right? If I do this, these other things will fall into place. Or this will be the thing that kicks off a bigger change. So I want you to think about what feels like the most impactful action to take. And this is going to look completely different for everyone because everyone has different things outside of their circle. So I'll give a little bit of time for this. And I just want you to think about maybe 1 to 3 actions, top 3 actions. This could be I'm cleaning out my closet, I'm creating a website, whatever it might be. Like it's 3 impactful, high impact. All right, if you have 1 to 3 high impact actions that came through to you, just drop a 1 in the chat so I know you have them. 1 in the chat if you have 1 to 3 high impact actions you'd like to take. Ones, lots of ones coming through. Notice if these came through for you really easily versus no. Notice if you're kind of stuck, if you're like, I don't know what that action is that I need to take. Just notice. Okay. And then I would actually love to know that too. Write the word in the chat easy if this was easy. You're like, I know my actions. Easy, easy, easy. Write the word easy. Write the word hard if you're not quite sure what the actions are. So put in easy, easy. Okay, we got a hard, easy, easy. And it's not designed to be, again, no right or wrong answers. Like some of this work is confirmation and like, oh, another nudge from the universe, right? Of like, I already know the thing that I'm supposed to be doing. Oftentimes it's bringing things up for the first time. So if you notice, I'm going to give some ideas here of if you notice that it is hard, and even for if you notice that it was easy, I'm going to give some ways that you can look at this list with a slightly different view. So I had a consultation with a potential client yesterday, actually. And she asked me at the end, I know this is the right fit for me. It seems everything is sounding good. I just need to really think about like, if I have the time to invest in it, at this time, right? Is the time right? And so she asked me like, how do people make that decision, right? When they know that like this is the right fit, it's like, I don't know if I have the time. I don't know if I have the time. And I asked her, so like, I pose this to myself when I'm making investments, whether it's financial investments, time investments. And I remember this actually was a question that I used to ask, like in my previous career when I was working with event organizers, and work having moving through like a sales process with them. The same question came up, and I'm like, I use this now myself. And the question is, which I'm going to ask you now, what's the risk of doing nothing? Right? What's the risk of doing nothing? If you just say, okay, I'm gonna have all this stuff, I'm gonna have my alignment circle, I'm gonna know my actions, but then after this workshop, I'm just gonna close my journal, park it until the next one, park it until January 1st, 2026, not gonna do anything with it, right? I just want you to think about what's the risk of doing nothing. So just jot down on your paper or on your journal just a couple thoughts. What happens if you just close the journal and this is it? You open it up in January. Just notice what's coming up for you. Because some people will be like, no, I cannot. I can't live like this for another couple of months, right? Or they're like, no, it has to change. Or like maybe doing nothing repeats a pattern that you're used to repeating, right? Of just like talking, 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 no action, no action. So just noticing this for yourself. I mentioned this question because it is such a powerful ask. You've probably seen that phrase, nothing changes if nothing changes. That's one of my favorite ones, right? It's like nothing changes if nothing changes. It's the same effect here, right? Of like just thinking about that. And if you're okay with how it is if you do nothing, that's okay, right? Then it's not urgent enough, right? It's not urgent enough. But some things do require that level of like urgency, right? Of like, okay, I've got to do it, right? So I want to just pose that to you here. All right. Let's drop number 3 in the chat. If you're still here, if you're here with me, you're like, yes, I'm here, I'm here, I'm here for this last little bit. We got 3s, yes, okay. All right. I'm going to go back to the slide that I skipped before. So a couple of ways that you can now view this list, right? You've thought about your 3 actions, right? We take this clarity. It's like, okay, I have clarity of what's in and out of the circle. I know what's giving me energy, draining my energy. I know all the things now. That second piece is zooming in, targeting, right? This is the priority, what first and why now. And then the third piece is actually taking action, right? Doing the thing. But one of the things that you can think about with this word alignment, and I recognize that this word alignment is thrown out a lot in a lot of different things. And maybe it's just my algorithm in Instagram. I'm like, alignment is everywhere, right? But it is important to really think about what this means for you. And so focusing on, we talked about this bit of what's in your sphere of control. Because with this work, it can be easy to think of other people changing. I need them to change. I need that person to stop doing that. I need this job to change, right? We think of the other side of the street. A big piece of any sort of alignment work is we have to focus on our side of the street, right? We have to focus on what can we control, how can we change our mindset, how can we approach things differently, and then integrate it in our relationships, right? Not in the isolation, but the integration. So focusing what's in our sphere of control. I mentioned that perception piece because I noticed after doing this kind of work with a lot of people, there's a lot of things that people perceive to be out of their control, right? So if it's not necessarily in your control, maybe you still have the opportunity to influence it, right? If there's something that you don't like that's happening at work, maybe you're not the manager or the CEO, but you can share your feedback, right? You can make a suggestion, you can be in that influence. So I want you to think about even if it's not your top decision, making the decision, how can you still influence that? Setting boundaries with balance. This goes back to that isolation and integration. It's really easy when you get into even the talk of setting boundaries of being like, okay, walls are up. Walls are up from everyone. Like, I don't have time for anybody. No, 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 no. Right? It's saying no to everything. But the big thing that I teach in boundaries is what is your either yes and or your yes but, right? What are your conditions? Yes, I can go to this party, but I have to leave 30 minutes early. No, I can't help you move, but I can drop something off, right? It's like, what are your conditions? How can you not say no and put up this like barricade around you when setting boundaries, but how can you actually work with it a little bit more fluidly? Avoiding spiritual bypassing. If you're like, what is spiritual bypassing? We're just talking about how do we make sure that we are not doing this internal work and thinking that we are above everybody because they are not doing this work, right? It's like, how do we actually notice when we're doing things like, you know, making ourselves too busy so that we don't have to face the things that are going on in our life, right? Or how do we notice, how can we make sure that we are basically really being grounded in the work that we're doing and not necessarily looking at other people as like, oh, they're not doing that, so like they're, they're outside of the circle, right? But coming to it with more compassion, coming to it with more kindness, coming to it with more awareness versus like, this is, again, it's that feeling of like isolation, right? Like I'm in my healing era, my self-care era. No one else can come in my aura, right? So really noticing how you can integrate this work with your people around you. Progress over perfection. For all of those three actions that you wrote down, already just knowing that you're not going to always get it right, right? It's not always going to be perfect. It's going to be messy. It's taking the little steps. It's going to be uncomfortable. It takes practice, right? So having this idea of like, I'm just moving forward, one foot in front of the other. The next step will influence the next step and the next step, right? And just not getting, I guess, not motivated because your action that you want to take doesn't go as planned, right? Or it has a take one step back, right? So just noticing that. And then finally, I do want to ask this question to everyone actually of the reframe, right? What is the reframe for you? And this is really coming back to your mindset. And sometimes the reframe, depending on whatever you all have something totally different on your page. Maybe there's some overlap with a couple of you, but you all wrote down like three different actions, three different things out of the circle. But typically, of all of that, there is a way that you need to reframe your mindset, right? It's not like they have to change. I have to quit my job. I have to cut off this friend. I have to do these things. It's like, how can you actually change and reframe the way that you approach it? So I've seen some people look at, I'll give an example. They look at everything that's on their circle and the actions, and they're like, okay, I need to reframe that I do have the time, because I keep saying I don't have the time, but I do have the time, right? That's the reframe. Or they have to reframe of like, actually it is in my control. And I've been telling myself that like it's out of control. Or I have to reframe that like I'm not what is it? I'm not a procrastinator, or I am disciplined, or I can be consistent, right? Whatever the talk track is that we tell ourselves of like, oh, I'm just this type of person, that could be the reframe. So I want you to think about and write this big and circle it on your paper. Make this the biggest thing that's on your paper. This could be your golden nugget for the workshop, right? What is your reframe? What's the reframe that you are telling yourself in order to make the actions happen? And in capital letters, drop that into the chat when you're ready. Capital letters, all caps, all caps. And if you resonate with any of the reframes that are coming through the chat, give them a like, give them a heart, give them a party, give them, they're coming through fast. Okay, I am in control. Change is coming. Receive it. I'm free. I'm deserving. I surrender. Amazing. Keep these coming through. Patience. I can let go. Tune in. Trust my intuition. All things will come at the right time. Yeah, I love the themes. There's so many themes coming up across people that have totally different lives, things that are happening, but there is so much overlap. Aligning my choices with my values. Yes. All right. So these coming through, if you haven't already, all caps. What is your reframe? All right. So I am going to, in our last couple of minutes here, I'm going to share what comes next. So what comes next, a couple of options for you to explore that are both free as well as an investment. Just so that if you are feeling lit up by this work and you're like, okay, where do we go next? What do we do? I do have some options for you. So we talked about the pieces of the Rise and Align method a little bit. What I believe is really the path towards everything that you notice that's out of alignment, as well as everything that you notice in alignment, a way that you can really start focusing on what do you control, right? Your side of the street, the things that actually have that big ripple effect, in my experience, have been these four things. That is why I have 4 months dedicated to this work, right? It's looking at habits, the meaningful, daily rituals. It's looking at your home space, this beautiful sanctuary that you can create that actually aligns to your values. It's that getting that work with relationships. Again, over and over again, this comes up as a theme, with people. It's like, yeah, you can be, going to the gym 5 days a week, eating all your amazing food, beautiful home. But if you don't look at relationships, it is such a missing piece of the puzzle. And then finally, the mindset. Even just noticing today in the short amount of time we had, the reframe, the ahas, the like, oh yeah, confirmation. Like this is the mindset work that can really get us to change our lives. So there are two ways that you can work on this moving forward. So as I mentioned, I decided to do a 5-day accountability challenge. It's free, starts on Monday. We're jumping into a WhatsApp chat that will be open for 5 days. And every day of this upcoming week, I'm going to be adding in a little voice note, like a little mini inspiration training. I'm going to be giving a challenge, so something that you can do. And then there's going to be a giveaway at the end. I've had some really good giveaways in my past challenges. So last time I had you pick which of the prizes you wanted. I think I'm going to do something similar today or for this week. So it's free as long as you joined and registered for the challenge or for the workshop. If you want to keep this work going, I would definitely recommend joining it. You can, the chat will disappear. I know we all have like a million chats, WhatsApp chats, but the chat will disappear after 5 days. And so that is a great, if you know that you want a little extra push this week, definitely recommend that. If you do feel like I'm ready to go all in, I'm ready to do this work, Rise and Align is my signature program. It's a 4-month coaching experience. It's a group program. I have some of my Rise and Align people on here. And it really is putting all of this into very actionable next steps over a 4-month period. So it's open for enrollment today. Get 222 off and a one-on-one coaching call with me that you can use either before the program starts or after, whenever in the program. So this program goes through the holidays, which is actually my favorite time to do programs because a lot of times, the January is always like new year, new me, right? But this is actually the most potent time of the year during fall, changing of the seasons, going inward, practicing this work over the holidays, which is a very, important time to land it. And so if you're feeling like, I don't want to wait till 2026, I'm ready now, then this is it. So you get this discount and bonus if you are interested. And that is it. We are at 11:26, so just at the 90-minute mark. I want to thank you all for joining. I think mostly all of us stayed on for the entire time. The chat was blowing up the entire time. And so I just want to say a big thank you to those who joined. I know we have a lot of people that are on the replay. There were over 115 people or so that signed up for this workshop. So I'm super excited to have people watch it later, join the chat, like get into this work, and look for the golden nugget. Maybe you have it written down, circled, maybe it's something from earlier. But yeah, I just want to say thank you. And I see so many people on video too. So thank you all for joining. Have a great weekend. And we'll see you soon. Bye.